All right, let's get started. So, super excited to talk about this topic today. This is one of our sessions from the AI series, and we're really going to focus in this session about AI as a revenue generator. It's interesting how much AI has transformed the very hearts and minds of every company, and many of the conversations we've had up to this point have focused on opportunities for operational efficiency, specifically in things like customer service or AR or long running processes or quoting. And in this conversation, we're really going to focus on how are companies using AI to create new revenue within the organization, either via incremental innovation that's happening to enhance the relationship with customers, or via disruptive opportunities to bring their product to the market in a new way. So for the next hour, we're going to dig into a whole series of different types of use cases and help you to be able to engage your customers in a way that brings them closer to you and creates a better experience, makes them want to do business with your organization because they're more attached to the type of work that you're doing. So to do a little bit of introductions, my name is Nathan Wisnowski. I'm Concurrency's Chief Technology Officer. Been with Concurrency for about 21 years. I'm a Microsoft MVP for 14 years. And we moved this session to this week, so super thankful for your adjustments because I had a baby last week. Actually, my wife did on a Wednesday, so it has been an awesome week for me to be able to experience that part of life and what that's meant for our family, and just to experience having a new son. So thank you for your flexibility. Weren't expecting it to collide with the event, but it did. So we've moved that back a week, and I'm so glad that you guys have joined us to participate. We have a couple other concurrency people on the call for a color commentary. We have Brian Hayden. Brian is the solutions architect, and he is involved in a vast majority of these AI type conversations. Awesome professional. He's been in business for many years, been at concurrency for I think 6+. And
6 years.
There you go. Awesome. So welcome to Brian. Thank you so much for being here. And then also Mac. Mac is a he's an architect on our team. He's involved in the dev side of a lot of our projects and really has helped make this real in the hearts and minds of companies. So, this is really two pieces, right? It's you're building AI models, but you're also connecting it into applications. These are AI enabled applications. So very infrequently do you just do an AI model. It's a AI model that does something. It has to talk to something. So Mac is often very involved in that part of the process. So welcome, Mac, to being here as well. And thank you for being part of the event today. He's also here for color commentary as we go.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. Sweet. All right. So let's start off. So I want to start with this idea that what worked before in your customer relationships isn't good enough anymore. And this is an example of that. So this is a screen for Choice Hotels. Now, if their CIO or any other parts of the organization is on this call, we have some great conversations to have with you. But this is their customer service interface that is on their website. So you have a problem with any of the Choice Hotel experiences, you go to their website, you hit customer service, and you hit this nice little form that you fill out. And you enter in your username, your first name, last name, email address, phone number, blah, blah, blah. You submit a request and they will call you back. And at one point or another, this was a great experience. This was better than what we were doing when you just called in and sat on hold, right? But this is not the modern experience that people expect when you're looking to have a better customer support experience. Let me give you a contrast to this. So instead of this idea of going to the website, filling this out, having a message, and then having to have to call you back to be able to get support, that experience provides a lot of disruption to my day. A, I have to fill it out. B, I have to wait for them to call. I have to be available. I'm always waiting for them to call me back. Maybe I even have a time, but that time doesn't align to the things I have to actually get done today. So all of that creates these injections of bad experience. I'll contrast that with an experience I had through Orbitz. So I was booking a hotel in Minnesota, and as I have done several times, unfortunately, I actually booked the hotel room for the wrong day. But not knowing it, I showed up at the hotel, and I was talking to the person at the front desk, and they said, "Oh, it looks like you booked your hotel for the wrong day, and that's 2 months from now." And oh, that's problematic. So we need to fix this problem. So, he said, well, you're gonna have to contact the company. And I understood that because like I'm booking through one of these platforms, but they have a chat app. So very quickly, I went on my phone onto the Orbitz app, went to the chat, said, I booked my hotel for the wrong day. Can you adjust it? He said, absolutely, I can fix this for you. While I'm standing there, the guy gets a call. They adjust it. He hangs up. They indicate that it's a change in the price. I said, sure. And seconds later, I'm in a position where the guy's like, oh, it looks like this is all taken care of. Great, we can check you in. That experience allowed me to resolve that very quickly. I didn't actually have to get on the phone with anyone. I didn't have this sort of wait time associated with it. It was asynchronous wait time, which lets me do other things and provides me a great experience. Now, from then on, I'm always booking with Orbitz because I liked the experience of what happened to me when something went wrong. So why is that important for revenue generation? It's because one of the most important things you do with revenue generation is create a good customer experience. And you have to think about everything you're doing in the context of that. So understand that what creates revenue is creating great relationships with customers. And even if it's tangential, it's what makes it sticky. So things like this aren't good enough anymore. Things like that are better. Now, take it another step. This is Hyundai's virtual assistant. Man, I don't know if they knew they were going to get shamed today, but Hyundai's virtual assistant, what kind of gas should I put in my Palisade? Note the response that you got. Can you ask this in a different way? I answer best when asked short, general questions. I'm asking what kind of gas I should use in my Palisade. Like, just a pretty straightforward question that you should be able to answer. So when a project like this is done not well and the customer gets an experience which is a sort of negative experience from it, it contributes to the same kind of lack of stickiness. Now, like I could say this experience is actually making me not want to work, not have a Hyundai Palisade, because the experience that this person is having is really taking me away from wanting to have that particular car. So the experience you provide them when you go down these routes needs to be a satisfying one. Remember, what is the experience that people now expect? It's ChatGPT. I was once building a platform that had search interface, and the search it was actually based on some SharePoint search, and SharePoint search is noticeably like terrible, right? So you go to do the SharePoint search, and it can't find certain types of things in the search interface. And I'm like, what's wrong with this? It's slow. It can't find the things I want. I go to Google and I find exactly what I'm looking for. That had become the normative experience for search. Now the normative experience for chat, asynchronous experiences is ChatGPT, and now becoming like the Bing chat experience that's now sideloaded and Edge and so on. If it doesn't match that experience, people are like, sigh, this isn't very great. So even people who have gone down the chat experience like Orbitz are finding like their chat experience is a step back from what people truly are wanting from that chat experience now, which is a relationship-oriented interface that provides me with consistent answers that feels like a human. So everything that we're doing from a revenue generation standpoint, whether it's just like creating better customer experiences for internal or external parties, needs to have that kind of consistent experience people have come to expect. So when we think about the context of revenue generation using tech like this, there's two types of innovation that we're finding. And these are coming out through envisioning sessions, and what the business is looking to achieve from its executive team is incremental and disruptive innovation. Incremental innovation is these existing processes that you augment or replace with AI-based technology or any other technology for that matter. So let's say that I'm quoting customers using a traditional process. It's I receive information from a customer, I put it in my spec into a spreadsheet, I translate it into a CAD, I take all that and I put it into something and spit it out into a Word document that I have to write, and then I finally submit it back. Versus receiving that information, a tool injects it, creates the bomb, and then puts it into a quote that I just have to review as a person and send back. That time to quote is substantially shorter. Same basic process I'm running, but I'm putting myself in a position to be able to answer the question faster. Now compare that against something like disruptive innovation, where you're going to the market with a new idea, a new capability. You're selling or bringing the data as a service, or you're bringing the updated package of how you organized a meal plan for a customer, or you're letting them self quote. Like you're giving them the ability to say, like, I'm interested in this kind of window. Let me self-quote my window and have that delivered directly to me. That usurps all sorts of different elements of the supply chain and brings a direct relationship to the customer. So disruptive innovation is really about like the big scale mission of where the business sees itself in 5 years. And how does AI play a part in that? Especially the way to think about it is if I had to start from scratch with my business, how would I go to business now with not thinking about how I currently make money? Incremental tends to be based on how I currently make money. Disruptive tends to be based on if I had to put that to the side for a minute and think about how I'm going to be usurped by new players in the market. How can I think about my business in this context and how AI plays a part in that? So these two types of innovation are going to come into play as we talk through some examples today. So all that fits into the idea of a apps and products maturity curve. And the reason I bring this up is because as you think about especially driving revenue, you have to think about in the context of where you sit on this curve. In many companies, they sit here. They're making money. They're successful businesses, but it's a low tech or it's a legacy product that they're interacting with their customers around. And they may have the most feature-rich platform. They may have the most capabilities, but what they use to be able to drive that value is a product that is, at its very root, a legacy platform. And building upon that is not necessarily an option. So sometimes you have to get your product to a position where it's either aligned to what the customer's actual asks are, or getting to a position where you're meeting the customer now where they want to be met at. So, for example, maybe like the car industry, for example, oftentimes has gone through selling through intermediaries or dealers, but many car vendors are going through direct sale. And that direct sale approach is something that some customers are very interested in. It's meeting them where they're at. I don't want to have to go and be haggled with at a car dealership. I want to be able to buy it online, have it show up in my house, and be perfectly happy with the product that I got. And that, in some cases, is meeting that customer where they're at. That relationship with how they want to be interacted with and how they want to engage the platform, where I'm going with it, how I use it. And then once you're there using your platform, then you can start to monetize on that, driving additional engagement. And that's where AI has an opportunity to drive additional value. Sometimes the AI is meeting the customer where they're at. That might be the chatbot, right? For example, another example of that chatbot, I had to replace a Ryobi battery for one of my weed whackers. Don't judge me. It wasn't a Milwaukee Tool. I should have a Milwaukee Tool one. And I didn't want to have to call their customer support. They had a really great chatbot that allowed me to replace the battery. That kept me on their platform. But then above that, they've done a poor job of actually monetizing on top of that. Whereas Milwaukee Tool, on the other hand, has done a lot to monetize on top of their platform by creating a customer platform that creates that same relationship. They have a lot of the same kind of capabilities, but then they build services on top of it. So this AI could exist here to drive that kind of interaction and create good customer relationships. But then this monetization is, all right, how can I provide them value on top of it that they would pay more for? I'm going to add new features. I'm going to add new capabilities that would give me intelligence about my usage of the tool, where I'm at with my battery, where my other tools are, keeping those tools from being walked off the construction site. That's where monetization capabilities, geofencing, come into play that are leveraging artificial intelligence. And then further driving up this maturity curve is where I start thinking about new AI enabled capabilities and platforms that may not even be selling the same product. Maybe it's replacing the way that I engaged my customers before. I'm working with a food distributor, and their main capabilities around the platform are just distributing food. Like, I'm a restaurant, I need food, I need it delivered to me at an ongoing basis, and I'm going to monetize that by accelerating which menus and which food people want to buy. But then further up on that line, the actual industry changing is to be an actual a consulting organization to restaurants, and maybe the food distribution is a loss leader, and the actual money that's made is based on the consulting that's done on top of that platform. So many times the original thing you were doing becomes just and you see this from Amazon, for example. Like, they don't make a lot of money. It's actually stunning how much money they don't make from selling products to you in a fortunate or unfortunate way. Their money's made on all the high value services that you buy on top of their platform versus the actual upcharge of actually getting products delivered to your door. So this is where we have to think about this when we think about creating more revenue as a result of artificial intelligence. So when you think about AI as a revenue generator, think about it in the context of some of these ideas. So accelerating sales to close. How can I take a request from my customer for something and give them a faster, better, more accurate experience that meets them where they're at to take that sales request or that need, maybe just say need, to a closed deal where I'm providing them value? How can I compress that for them? Make me easier to do business with. We all hate doing business with companies that are hard to do business with. How do we create a relationship with a customer that's easier to do business with? This next item, driving the optimization of the customer purchase. You see very rudimentary versions of this when you go to like Amazon and you're shopping. Other customers frequently bought X. That's a very rudimentary version of this. Like, yes, it's connecting products makes them buy that second thing. The advanced versions of this are more about planning, about relationships. Like a lot of customers that we work with are B2B, for example. Like I'm selling a material to another company. I'm selling a financial subservice to this other company. And the relationship that the AI service you're providing them is actually helping them with their supply chain. Like if I'm selling lumber to an organization, I'm helping them with their supply chain. If I know more about what they need than they do, and I can create a better customer relationship that cause them to buy more from me if I optimize what they're buying. So this customer purchase optimization is really about seeing you as more than just like a button pusher and driving your company into one that truly creates value for them. Customer insights, this idea of I have a relationship with a customer. They're buying something from me, oftentimes financial services, the middleman services, the ideas around owning a product. All this is driven by like an exchange of something, exchange of information, exchange of goods. But the insights upon that are one of the most powerful things that you have and are least frequently monetized. The idea that I know something about them and I can use that thing that I know, especially in the context of best practices across many industries, to be able to help them improve their business. If my customers are more successful, then they will buy more from me. If they're less successful, they won't buy more from me. So if I'm their main supplier of whatever service I provide to them, then I can help them to be a better customer and help them to drive more revenue for me by being more successful themselves. And that's something we call high focus. Like if my focus is actually on the success of my customer, I'm going to have a better relationship with them in general. If my focus is on my success, then I'm going to really just be focused on how I get more things sold out the door. But if I focus on them, then I create more symbiotic long-term relationships. And that's really where customer insights fits in. Customer process automation. This fits into, can I optimize something my customer needs done? There's a way of thinking about this called job to be done. Like, what is the thing that my customer is doing? What is the task that I have to accomplish? And that task is oftentimes accomplished via tools. And sometimes we think that like, oh, I just need to have better tools to be able to help them accomplish that task. And that tool and that task have a certain degree of relationships. And I keep focusing on the tool and making the tool better. But maybe there's a way for them to do the task better that isn't the same way I'm executing on the tool today. So customer process automation can fit a lot into that picture where I'm like, there's this saying like, don't put the customer's monkey on your back like it's their monkey, but you can put the customer's monkey on your back if they're paying you to put the customer's monkey on your back. And that's what customer process automation oftentimes is. It's like, I see you have this problem. I've automated that problem with artificial intelligence. It costs you X per user, and now your team doesn't have to do that anymore. And they can go do value add things. And that's where so many companies are truly getting into the product development space, where in the past they were in the thing delivery space. This is where AI revenue generation really comes to play. And then finally, smart products. This idea of everything that I do ultimately is an intelligent product. Think your garage door opener. Most of us, or many of us, have smart garage door openers now. That platform went from a very dumb platform to a intelligent platform, now one that they're selling additional capabilities on top of. AI is fully baked into all of that. And it becomes an element of how we actually sell to our customers. Same thing, even a financial product, like the financial tools that I use, they integrate financial planning straight into the product I'm using. What a financial advisor does now is very different than what a financial advisor did 25 years ago, because the way that the tools enable us have provided some of the baseline capabilities and then enabled us to have smart conversations with advisors that are built on that instead of having to start from square one. So AI as a revenue generator really bakes in many of these ideas. So this is probably a good part to pause for a second and say something I didn't mention at the beginning of the session, which is questions. Like, as you have questions going through this, drop those guys in the chat, and we want to answer them as we're going. And especially as you want to like dig into a particular subtopic or ask a question about one of the screenshots we're going to show, I think that would be totally worthwhile. It's useful to your compatriots who are also on the call. And if it's really worth it, we could even drop you onto into a follow-on session to answer that particular question. So by all means, drop the questions in the chat. We'd love to have more of them. And certainly at the end, we'd love to even take some voice questions as well. Okay, so in each of these domains, and I'm not going to hit all these, you will get a copy of this deck after, and happy to screenshot it, of course, but there's all these sub little elements, and what I'm going to do is go through examples in each of these domains that provide some things to think about in each of these areas, as we talk about them. All right, so let's start by talking a little bit about accelerating sales to close. Like, what do we actually mean by that? There's really three different kind of major scenarios that we're seeing here. The first is this idea of quote acceleration, and that could be simple quoting. It could be like we're working with a company that does CAD drawings for everything. Like, and what they need to do is take the CAD drawing that they're getting from their customer, ingest that. Instead of having a human have to do all the work to be able to construct the quote, like how can I take that and actually like do 90% of that work for them so I can send that back in an accelerated fashion. So sales quote generation is one of the and you say, why is that revenue generation? Because time to quote is, and accuracy of quote is one of the biggest predictors of many companies' revenue generation. Like if it takes me 4 hours versus 15 minutes, it's a big difference in terms of my opportunity to be able to be accurate and serve my customers. Like even for ourselves, for example, like we used to use an Excel spreadsheet. We've translated that into Power Platform and a bunch of baked tools that let us accelerate our production of accurate quotes for customers. And that has transformed the way that we work together. So the idea around accelerating sales quote generation is a revenue increaser versus just an operational saver. Another example is a sales asset helper. The idea of enabling my sales team to answer questions for customers faster and have the assets at their hands. One of the things I most frequently think about is we have produced so much content, and the same thing for like many of our customers we work with. They produce so much content around the products that they sell, but their sales team has no idea where to find it. And it's not even just like it's all in one place. It's that like even if it was in one place, like the idea of shuffling through a bunch of different decks to get to this specific answer for a customer request is really complicated. What if I could take those customer requests, inject them into a tool that answers a lot of those questions for me, and then lets me answer the question quickly back to them? That's what sales asset helpers are really about. Like, how can I help them answer the question faster, and then potentially even move that to a B2C scenario where the customer gets their own question answered? And then finally, this idea of customer sentiment analysis, this idea that I want to know as a customer goes through a selling process, am I meeting their need and am I meeting it quickly? This is particularly useful in high volume scenarios where you're doing a lot of interaction with customers, and there's patterns that people use to be most effective at being a great partner for a customer and provide them value quickly. And if they're not doing that well, I can figure out like, am I using empathy? Am I answering direct questions? Am I able to provide them the information they're asking for? I can get that information from customer sentiment analysis, and I can coach people to go through a process better as a result of using AI. So examples of some of these. So this is an example of a quoting process. I'm going to take a set of assets, and then I'm going to inject that into this is a request from email. I'm going to inject that into extracted information that then lets me modify or accept a quote that's then sent back to a customer. And the whole idea behind that is accelerate my relationship with a customer and help me drive value faster. Another example of this is in taking a customer order scenario, especially around the idea of knowing what they're asking for. Prediction of a customer forecast, alignment to a proactive purchase, and management of their own backlog. So, in this previous example, I'm interpreting a request from them, extracting it, creating an order, sending it back. Now, what if I didn't even need that information because I'm already predicting their requests? I know information about what they need. We have a relationship with each other based upon the needs of their forecast, and I can align that to me proactively purchasing the material necessary to produce what they need. So perhaps I'm working with builders and I'm a lumber provider. If I know a lot about their upcoming demand, then I can optimize how I sell them lumber by buying at the right points. That then lets me fulfill exercise into their backlog. That's savings for me, optimizes the customer relationship. They're buying lower, but for me, it's the same margin. So I'm getting to a position where like they're maybe buying more and having a better relationship with me because we're tight. Now they don't want to buy from someone else because I'm already anticipating their needs. So I'm driving more revenue because I've created a better relationship. Another example we just talked about was about sales asset helpers. This is a asset helper that we worked on to answer questions about a boat. So I'm in the boat buying business. I want to buy a new boat. I'm interested in details about it. You can see that what I'm doing is asking a question about a boat. It's providing me information. It's giving me where it got it from in the citations. And then I'm asking detailed questions like, what's the draft? It's answering me, what is the draft, where it got it from. And then it's also answering questions like maximum speed. You can see here, this is where it found it inside the actual document, gives me exactly where it is within that document. So the whole idea behind something like this is help me help the customer faster by being able to ask questions into an interface. A lot of times companies do this by having like common Teams chats, like I'm having a customer conversation. I'm going to ask a question to a Teams chat. Someone else in my team is going to answer that question for them. This is a way for us to be able to incorporate a lot of those questions into a bot so the sales team can answer those questions immediately, especially even when they're on the phone immediately with a customer versus have to go back and answer those. You can see also how once this gets to a point where the customer service team or the sales team is satisfied with it, you can start to bring this forward to what we call a headless model, which actually gives this capability straight to a customer and helps you answer their questions sooner on in the process. So you can see that this can provide a lot of value from a sales team standpoint. And then this last scenario in the quoting space goes in this very complicated quoting experiences where like I'm developing window patterns and I want to enable self-service for complicated things. So you can see here an experience of a home, like a consumer at home that is looking at their window. It is like virtualizing the placement of a window in with a size and so on in an existing space, adjusting different elements of that within that space. And the AI can then optimize how that fit is set up versus the person having to be like eyeballing it's 42 inches versus 56 inches. We could actually have it like auto expand to the size of the location and pick the right elements based upon location of the thing, which then lets us move into like the full intelligent quoting process. So where a customer is researching product options, and then oftentimes now they're going to a store, but the store employees have like, you ever gone to buy a window in a store? It's not a great experience. Like you're going to the store, you're like having to remember the sizing, you're setting up an appointment at your home. Like, what if I could shortcut this and I do all that experience right here when I'm sitting in my home? And I have, maybe if I need help, maybe someone dials in and they can help me with it as I need, which goes straight to the product made delivery, and then invoicing the installation. So if I can start to shortcut parts of that, provide a better experience than having to physically go to like Lowe's or Home Depot or something, I can create an experience that drives more value for my customers. You see that also fits into this idea of like, is it a custom design idea? Can I structure that in the context of a need that brings it through the manufacturing process as a package right back into the ordering process? Even when it's custom, I can use models to be able to create that more quickly. So there's a lot of value just in like even complicated scenarios of building complex order flows right into using AI. Okay, and the last scenario here in like quote enablement is things like customer call analysis. I'm having conversations with my customer. I want to drive more revenue from them. Well, how do I do it? I have a better person talking to them, right? Like we've all had great people and negative people we've talked to in the context of call analysis. So like, did I do a great customer intro? Did I explain the product well? And then based on that, was an order placed and did they get a PO note, right? You have these tasks, these check boxes of things you want them to be doing. So there's some commodity platforms out there that do call analysis. What I found is that they are average, and oftentimes there's a need to build on that or provide more that's really focused on what is my selling approach, and A, is it successful? B, how do I adjust it? C, how do I coach people as they go into new calls? So call analysis ends up being a really valuable aspect of this. Okay, let's move into customer purchase optimization as a next conversation. So customer purchase optimization is all about optimizing the relationship that a customer drives from us. So like what are the things that a customer ultimately wants to create? So customer purchase optimization is about optimizing cart or portfolio selection based upon what they're already providing. So optimized cart or portfolio selection being like, I'm getting the most value from what I ultimately am trying to purchase from you. What are the collection of things that go together to create more value? What are the collection of things that provide a greater outcome based upon buying this thing? Like I'm getting into the sports market. I want to buy some running shoes, but maybe this particular shoe needs certain types of socks. So I need to buy those things together. That's a very consumer-oriented experience. We've done the same thing for like a boating purchase. Like I have a boat. I have bought this boat, but maybe there's other things I want to do along with it. And I want to sell like add-on products that are associated with that particular product that other people have found value in. That's sort of a minimal kind of purchasing experience. Again, going back to the idea that like if I can anticipate customer needs, my cart experience might not just be that. It might actually be like, here's the best way of planning your menu. Here's the best way of buying this from me that drives new value from the experience. So optimized cart and portfolio selection. Purchased optimized based on forecast. This idea that I'm buying this because it's the right thing for my demand from my company, and I create a increased revenue generation because I have a relationship with them. And then finally, purchase suggestions from adjacent products. The ideas around this is something that other people are buying that is providing value. So all these kind of customer purchase optimization scenarios are about knowing your customer better and providing more value on top of what they do. So you notice this inside of Amazon, the same kind of experience exists in any kind of B2C workload. And the better we optimize the things that are bought together, the sponsored items, the things you want to build in an unobtrusive but positive way, creates a true, optimized purchasing experience. So how do we do that? We have a customer model, which helps us to optimize the demand of the customer. So this is interesting because this particular piece can actually be an operational savings for you as well. Like oftentimes we have people doing operational savings activities around supply chain in the context of their business. And this is really bringing that forward to say, well, I know a lot about how they buy, and I know when they buy and how they buy. So what if I create a model for them, and maybe I either offer it for free, or I could even charge them more to participate in that model optimization through an interface that predicts their forecast, aligns with proactive purchases and moves into a backlog. This has been a game changer for many suppliers of middle market platforms, as well as opportunities for organizations to even optimize like products that they sell on top, like they go along with like other products, finished products to go along with other products. So optimizing the forecast can be key. One other thing you can do though, and this kind of goes back to this other thing, if you know what they're buying, you can actually influence this to increase what is reasonably being bought at that same time. So you know that they want to be buying X numbers of boats or X numbers of cars or X amounts of homes that are being built, and the lumber that's being built into that. You can actually say, well, you know what, you're buying this lumber from us. Why don't you buy these other things from us? We'll ship them at the same time, increase the revenue that's a component of that sale. Same sort of idea of like financial services. I have a customer that I know is injecting this amount of cash into their platform at a certain point. I know they have this other relationship with this other provider. How do I bring that into a better experience for them? Because I know a lot more about them and I can start to coach them toward better outcomes. All right, let's go into customer insights. Customer insights represents providing that knowledge back. So one way I like to think about this is, how does the top quartile perform? And what do we know about them that lets us coach the customer toward better outcomes? So a customer of ours does processing of large transactions for like certain types of medical scenarios. And what they have is all this information about these customers. What if they were able to take that information and use that to say, well, companies that are really profitable are doing this. Companies that are not as profitable are doing this. And if you start doing this, you can ingest best practices into what you do. Same kind of a deal with like that idea around restaurants, right? Like I'm a successful restaurant, like most restaurants fail. So if I'm a successful restaurant, I'm usually doing this. If I'm not a successful restaurant, I'm usually doing X. I want to be doing the things that a successful restaurant does. How do I inject that artificial intelligence to provide them that information? And that might be built right into your platform to create stickiness with your core predominant business model, or it might be the new business model that you're providing to them to say, when I get on this platform and I provide them my data, I immediately get insights that let me be more successful as a business. It also provides a comparable with competitor data. The idea of what are other public competitors doing that I'm not doing that I can take advantage of, and can I use customer insights to be able to improve the way I engage? This has become really, really popular because everybody wants to be able to do more with less. And they want to be able to, like, for example, if you're going in to do marketing on the public on LinkedIn, there are platforms that tell you, what are all my competitors doing on LinkedIn? What's their top post? What are they talking about? What are they posting about? I can use that information driven by AI to optimize my own relationship with the public through LinkedIn or other tools that let me market the right things. Me, like, be in the hearts and minds of my customers, either in things my competitors aren't talking about or things that they are talking about. So much value that can be provided as a result of public data. And then second is this connection between data, people, and products identified. This relationship between what can a customer do to make themselves more capable and to make themselves drive better outcomes. So I'll show you a couple examples of that. Okay. This next one is customer process optimization. This idea of taking the monkey on your back and driving it for your customer. So where this comes into play, things like smart customer process review. They have a set of things that you need to do when you drop it off. I'm producing a wrench, and when I deliver those wrenches, I need to match that with the PO. Well, maybe they do that every day. What if I took that on for them? What if I took on the process of handling the lumber delivery for housing, or I took on the process of food delivery, and I looked at that food delivery process and I validated what's already in there. Like I inventoried what's in their fridges as a result of using tooling. Smart customer process reviews, like taking something that customer is doing, onboarding it to you, and doing it for them. Supply chain insights, providing insight into what they need to optimize as a result of their business. And then finally, this idea of image or video review, like this is like out of left field, but it's like super interesting. Um, Many logistics companies that we work with, part of their business is optimizing the routing of things, and that's really where the supply chain insight comes in, right? This idea of like, where does stuff go, how much, where do I buy it at, where do I deliver it to, so on and so forth. This other idea is about, I usually have to like analyze things I have in these locations, in the trucks, or I even have to analyze like the what experience the trucker's having, and I may even be looking for like issues that are happening in delivery or product delivery processes that are tied to, my shipping or the shipping of my product or the logistics company that I use, or that I get it in an accurate way. Is there a way for me to scan it to provide the right feedback on the product itself? And all these can be opportunities for me to drive new revenue from the way I work with my customer. So I want to give an example of like using this for analysis of some of those logistics scenarios. So in this example, you may or may not know this, in logistics, there's a lot of like tools that they use to be able to make sure the drivers are being safe. And one of our customers, they build technology around this, and they actually analyze whether or not a customer is driving safe, not a customer, like a trucker is driving safely. And there's two elements they look at. One is they look at the road, and the other is they look at the actual driver themselves. And based on that, they need to like provide feedback to the actual trucking companies that this sort of stuff is happening. So for example, you can see in this image here, we're looking for, is the person wearing a seatbelt? Is the driver distracted? Is there no belt? Is there phone use? And in this case, there's phone use, right? So we're identifying that. In this case, so the belt's okay, but we have all the rest of these things as problems. In this case, the guy is futzing with his phone, so we can see phone use as an issue in this particular image. Another thing that we did is we kind of pumped this into GPT-4 and said, like, what can this tell me? Like, what can it tell me about the image? Which is really a fascinating question. Like, what can you tell me about this image? This is a man sitting in a car, appears to be middle-aged and thinking. I don't know why he thinks he's thinking, but apparently he's thinking. And this, I don't see him wearing a seatbelt. What is the current speed? And then, is he safe? I can't tell, but he's driving over the speed limit, etc. So there's some things like this. This is telling us intelligent information. Like, I know he's not wearing his seatbelt. That's a problem, right? Like, so what's interesting is I can combine those two things together. So I can combine like traditional training, like there's cognitive services that will do this kind of work, right? I can train on like, am I wearing a seatbelt? Am I driving too fast? Am I this? Am I that? I can combine that with things that I can get from these large language model or large image model analysis platforms to create outcomes that, in this case, actually optimize the review of the actual images for the logistics organization. And in this case, they actually sell that as an additional service. So this is an additional +1 service that they can say, like, okay, cool, we'll help you with all these things. Do you want us to analyze your video for you? +1 will actually sell you that product. And that kind of drives us into this idea of smart products, which is anything that you enable for your customer to create new value. This is safety and security features, it's experience optimization, or it's jobs to be done acceleration. Safety and security features are like, I am creating a smart product that has things like geofencing or safety. Like we worked with a company that does boats and made a smart boat platform that enables them to be able to do geofencing around their boats to say, like, I don't want anybody, my boat's in the dock all summer long. I don't want anybody on my boat. I want to analyze, make sure nobody's gone on it when they shouldn't be. Or is the battery available to start? Is it going to work? And where is today a good day to go on the boat based upon the prevailing winds? And like anybody who's been a boater like knows that like you can kind of go down to the lake and be like, I think it's a good day to bring out the boat, or like, no, I think it's going to get worse. And like you have a pretty good like anticipation accuracy of like what that's going to look like just by like walking down and looking at and knowing what direction the wind's coming from and how significant the wind's going to be. But sometimes it comes out of nowhere, and that's because we don't always look at the data. So safety and security features come into play there. Experience optimization, that idea of like, is my battery charged up? I'm taking the boat out. Like, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I certainly have. Where like I'm starting to like I've got all the kids in the boat, they're all ready to go, and the battery's dead, and like they've all got their life preservers on. You're like, well, John, like this is not a good day. How can I make the experience for them better by using a tool? And this idea also finally of like jobs to be done acceleration. This is really anything my customer is doing. Can I take that job to be done and make it done better for them, whether I'm replacing the experience or creating a new experience? One of my customers, they're completely disrupting part of the financial industry. And I can't tell you much about it because it's very hush hush, but like it's all about disrupting the way that we do a certain financial process and enabling consumers to be able to do more of it themselves. So creating it as a revenue generator to do something different than what we do today that takes a whole piece of the process out is fantastic and amazing in the way that we can create real value. This job to be done idea, this came into play and around like analyzing videos. uh, one of the customers I'm working with, they do analysis. They have like guard shacks. Someone sits and watches for stuff to happen in manufacturing facilities or this or that. Can I provide video analysis output of A, did someone go into a facility they shouldn't be going into, or B, is there something really negative happening? Is there an attack happening? Now, you can go short or far on this, and hopefully this didn't trigger anybody, but you have this idea of like, can I take something that like is boring and not interesting to do and make it something that is always watching, always accurate, but people won't be freaked out by that? Like, I already have cameras on my manufacturing warehouses. I'm already looking for people. I'm already looking for people to go into them when they shouldn't be. Can I do a digital guard service around the context of that analysis? So another idea of like smart product adding on more value to an organization right within the mission. Like this is one of those like moonshot disruptive ideas where like I can actually offer this as a cheaper service. So someone could literally enter into a market where hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are providing the service today. Someone could just build this from scratch and go digital guard service, totally disrupt the market by offering it cheaper and provide more value. I guess that's something that will be my next idea. And then finally, this idea of like safety around geofencing of platforms. This was something with a logistics company we worked with, is like the safety of the driver, the safety of the material. Where am I putting it? Is it been going to the right locations? And has someone been something that surprised me that I didn't know is how often people try to go in these parts of the truck. Like if I can geofence it and keep the driver safe when they're in like the Love's truck stop and they come back out after a couple hours of eating lunch and stuff, like is their truck safe? Like there's some ideas around making sure that that's provided as additional service. So when I think revenue generation, and then in many cases I'm thinking about how can I provide more value than I already provide to my customers. This idea of creating stickiness, healthcare chat, the idea of like what's the thing we all hate the most about our health insurance? Well, it's probably health insurance, but the second most thing I hate about my health insurance is getting certain types of questions answered, like what's covered, what's not. Nobody wants to call up their health insurance and ask these questions. What if I had a chat experience that provided me the ability to answer these questions faster? Does that drive more revenue? It certainly drives stickiness. It may drive my costs down so I can not have to have them like consider a different health provider when they go to switch it out at the open enrollment time. So there's opportunity for us to be able to create more stronger relationships with customers as a result of that. Okay, so last piece here. Let's talk about how we get started. How do we like actually drive these into new revenue? First thing, and I'll break this into two pieces actually, is envisioning. Where I find companies need to start first is thinking about the mission of their organization and how AI relates to it. In many cases, that's an executive session, and we do a fair number of those. That's a great place to start, just to get the executive team aligned. Where are we going from here? But what sometimes has to inform that is what are the ideas? Like what are we, and sometimes you can't just like take your executive team and turn inward and think that that's going to answer it. Oftentimes you have to turn outward and say, how does the business and all the people that know so much about what we do, where can we take this business if we use AI to drive it? So oftentimes running large group envisioning sessions that break into smaller groups and then you start with art of the possible, you break into smaller groups, you come back with ideas. Those ideas are ranked, and you provide an opportunity for you to look at both incremental and disruptive transformation within an organization. This is a killer way to start. It doesn't cost anything. It drives engagement across the organization. It gets people invested and interested, and shows that you're actually thinking about where the business is going to go with AI. This is not the time to bury your head in the sand and think, what do I have to do to lock down ChatGPT? That is a loser of an idea. It is not going to be successful. This is where the true leaders are thinking about this in the context of their business and where it needs to be in 5 years. So this is an example of an agenda. We did this with Tim Dixon at Generac and 100 plus of their employees to create ideas. We've now done this many, many, many times, both in person, hybrid, and remote. And it's a great opportunity to create ideas that get ranked. And this is like oftentimes what that ranking looks like. So understanding the kinds of things you might do, thinking about it in the context of like this idea of automation of PO and order matching for 400 to 500,000 orders a year. The idea of that's an ops value creation. Its difficulty is medium. Its category priority was 1. In this particular case, it was the idea selected because it provided just obvious value. Like if I can automate somewhere between like 90% of those orders per year, of that matching process that a person has to do, I can let that person do much more valuable things in my business. So a lot of opportunity, especially if you really group those ideas and create an idea engine that lets you prioritize how you think about the category, the difficulty, and the priority, and let your team make intelligent decisions about what the first pilot is. And the way you make that decision is here by evaluating a scenario. So I'm looking at, do I have data? Because if you don't have data, it's game over, right? And this doesn't mean like I need to spend 2 years going through a data warehousing experiment. It means for the use case I'm attacking, do I have data? Second, do I have return on investment? Is it worth doing? Sometimes people come with ideas and they're like, yeah, we do this 100 times a year. Well, like, okay, this is a $90,000 project. Like you need more than that. Like this has to be worth it to you. And then oftentimes you're like, oh, but if I did this is going to pay off in millions. I'm like, yeah, well, that's the one, right? Like let's go after something that truly has return on investment. And then sponsorship. You need the relationship to, like, one of the reasons why the Generac project was so successful is the CIO sponsored it, the CEO's involved. You have these other relationships that are from the business pulled in that are part of the picture. They're saying this means something to us. Most of the envisioning sessions we're doing, they're pulling in business leaders and not just pulling in IT leaders. So sponsorship to the idea is critical. So these 3 things are the critical elements to be able to do anything valuable. We then have the pilot. You're going to pick a thing. And one reason I'm skipping over the POC level is because POCs don't truly drive value. Sometimes you do them just to like prove it's possible and it's worth doing, but usually we're going straight to pilot, which is I want to show that in this use case, I can create value against a constrained enough set of things in a constrained timeline with realistic first goals, understanding of success to drive out to that next into outcomes. And pilots then are showing that success is possible and that success is actually happening in a specific use case. And then you're doing it brick by brick. Like you've achieved some value, you keep achieving more value, you keep moving forward, you measure that based upon its impact, you commit to multiple iterations, and then you operationalize it, which is the forgotten thing. Like sometimes people come to me and they ask like, what do I have to do to build ML ops within my organization? And like, should I be doing that up front? Well, do you have an idea? Like, have you done anything yet? And sometimes they go together, right? So again, it's like a chicken and the egg, right? You need to operationalize what you've built, but usually you have to start with doing something first and do that in the context of operationalizing it. That said, many organizations that are very large that I'm working with, they have a need of what does a enterprise deployment of AI look like? How does a broad implementation of it look across our organization? How do we standardize it? How do we do it at scale? How many bots do we actually build? Like, is there one bot to rule them all, or there's 72? How does it relate to data domains? That is a picture that we're not talking about in this event, but we will in an upcoming one that is super important, especially for enterprise organizations. So keep that in mind. It's something that you need to be thinking about as well. Okay, so my last slide for today is a call to action, and it's an ask for a next step with all of you. And what I would love to do with everyone is to start with group envisioning. This is really about like, how can we, for free, go and engage with you to help you come up with the right ideas to drive AI value within your organization. And then based on that, let's select something that is the right thing for your business to do. And it might be the moonshot, or it might be something that proves some of this on the way to the moonshot. But it's selecting a scenario to go after as the scenario that aligns to the needs of your business. And then moving that into pilot, which is an opportunity to create true value based upon that selected use case. Creating value based upon where can we go from here, showing it to your business, showing it's real. Like some people in your business are going to be like, I am gung ho, and other people are going to be like, show me this actually works. And the pilot is how you do that. It lets you get to a point where I actually proved it, and proved it in the context of what you're doing. So at this point, I would love to take any additional questions that you might have. Feel free to come off mute. Happy to answer any questions you have. Before you leave, definitely select one of these calls to action. And remember, we also have a summit coming up in person in 3 different states, and many more that might come after it that you should be aware of. These are in-person summits. And we will be doing a lot of really interesting sessions in these summits. So make sure you're looking out for that. That's in Wisconsin, Chicago, and in Minneapolis. That will be in-person summits that we have customers speaking at on their outcomes. So looking forward to seeing you there as well. All right. Any questions that anyone wants to come off mute and answer? If so, I'd be happy to stick around and answer those questions. All right. Well, hopefully that means that you got a lot of great information from the session. And I'm really looking forward to talking more with each of you. So when you leave, please fill out the form, and looking forward to talking more with you about AI in the future. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for spending some time with us.